Hello students. We in the second semester have variety of business communication syllabus. We have seen the preliminary part or theoretical part of communication and how business communication use these types of tools and instruments when reaching out to the people, whether internal or external. There are so many stakeholders who needs to be communicated, and it's a kind of a lubricant for the business organizations, firms and manufacturing companies. This lubricant makes the communication and management organization much more efficient in their work, and that is what we have seen. It is very important and crucial for the business organizations to function. Communication is not only a one-to-one exchange of thoughts, feelings and ideas, but it is also when it comes to communicate large audience, it stands for group communication. The efficient administration of any business organization demands the foundation of laying down policies, taking certain decisions, and this efficient administration manages all business related activities. And for this purpose, so many people or human resource needs to be contacted, and that we see the manager who asks his employee to come and discuss about the function of the department. So, to regulate the day-to-day activities, maximizing profits, earning goodwill, it is very important for the group communication to work very efficiently. And that is what we have seen. The human resources are made not just to sit in the air conditioned, well furnished room, cabin of a top executive, but it means to communicate, it means to work, it means to use the skill and human resource for the welfare of the organization. When we speak of group communication, we mean that a group of individuals comes together, meets at a certain place, particular place, at a specific time, and discusses the matters that comes in front of them. So group communication becomes a means of collecting information, and since each individual in a group thinks individually and presents his points of view, this facilitates the process of decision making. Group organization, a business organization, which is in its essence the collection of the shareholders, interest holders, owners of the organization in the true sense of the term, to take down the decisions, to lay down the policies. The shareholders thus meets to appoint directors who appoints some executives for the smooth functioning of the organization. The committees are formed, conferences are held for updating information, for maintaining good business contacts and earning goodwill of the business community. Meetings, committees, conferences are distinct features of the group communication. So like this, the group communication is very important part. Under the group communication, the points that we are going to study is the meeting. Meeting, when a coming together of number of persons at a particular time, at a particular place, with an intention for discussion. The meeting, it becomes a tool for the communication, for the management. So we have to go through the meeting definition, the types of meetings, for what the purpose the meetings are organized, advantages and disadvantages of meeting. Meeting needs certain strategies, certain planning, how meeting are to be organized, and it will be discussed in the preparation and conduct of a meeting. Certain legal formalities like notice, drafting notice, agenda, resolution needs to be prepared. Then we have committees. Committee and what types of committee? What are the advantages and disadvantages of committee? That needs to be ascertained. The next group communication type that is very much handy for the business organizations is conferences. So we need to go through the definition of conference, the steps of organization in a conference, and advantages and disadvantages of conference. Next, we have another business and group communication activity, that is interview. It's an activity or it's a tool to recruit the best of the employee, and for this purpose interview is also a group communication, since it involves a group of panel or a panel member, the members who comes together to interview the candidate. So we have the purpose and types of interviews. There are certain strategies adopted to recruit, assess, and so other objectives in the techniques of conducting interviews. There are certain parameters, criterions on which the candidate is assessed. So we need to go through that. Then, as an interviewer, we need to understand what is the role of interviewer and interviewee. So we just need to understand in this particular topic. So we are going to discuss that later on. Public relation is also one of the most advantageous to create a good public image. The business organization need this public relations. No public relation officers, the department which works for developing public relations. So public relation, what is the need of that and why it is so important in the modern world? There are two types of public relations, and one is to be studied as internal public relations. There are certain ways by which we can develop the public relations, and it includes suggestions, suggestion schemes, advice, counseling, publications, house organs, bulletins, and so on, etc. We have this type of public relation which works with the employee. We have another one is external public relations. So the outside members, they are external part of the organization. They are not directly involved, but there are other stakeholders like banks, customers who are not part of the organization. They also need to be communicated, and for this purpose all this activity is brought under the external public relations. We have image building. For this purpose, open house may be organized, exhibitions to be organized, fairs and shows needs to be organized, conferences needs to be adopted to strategize and to use. Seminars and visits, etc., needs to be used. We have the mass media. The use of mass media, press releases, newsletters, and press handouts that need to be prepared. We have written communication, and for this we have trade letters, inquiries, replies, orders, drafting orders, task for tutorials. Other such a writing skills needs to be understood and studied. So we have trade letters, and these trade letters are business letters. To develop the business or businesses, or to expand the business, to earn the profit, equally the trade letters are also useful. So it is directly involved in the business activity. To inquire about the goods and services is directly involved in the customer satisfaction. Soliciting the orders and earning the money. So, drafting orders needs to be understood. If there are any problems with the orders, delivery of the orders, with the goods, we have complaints. These complaints can be launched with the seller. So, how to draft this later? We need to go through in detail. Then we have, if we have incurred some losses, we can claim for that. And so we have claims. At the same time, we have certain adjustments that we can make. So letters, adjustment letters needs to be studied. Then we have replies. Sales letter is also one of the advertisement type of letter, and that needs to be followed with a certain strategy to attract the attention and to bring the seller, to bring the customer at the selling point. So sales letter is also a salesmanship, that how to develop and write in such a beautiful way we will study later on. Then we have status inquiry letters and credit letters. So like this we have this type of letters that we need to understand here. When it occurs to the group communication, we have seen that there are certain uses of that. So for the purpose of a group communication, we just need to have certain purpose in our mind. What is the purpose is going to be served? What is the topic that we need to communicate? To whom? And what is likely the effect that this communication will achieve on the listeners? So this purpose needs to be served. So group communication always has their purpose. At the same time, the group communication needs to be planned beforehand. So planning is required. So where to meet, how to meet, with what physical facilities, what communication that we need to do prior to the meeting. So this planning needs to be done. Participation means all those invited persons needs to be called upon. They should physically present, they should bring certain ideas and concepts and participate actively in the meeting. So to ensure their participation, notice needs to be sent to them. Proper atmosphere. Of course, the proper atmosphere needs to be created when we have this type of meetings. So the meeting will achieve this. Number of members. Of course, how many numbers are to be required? What are the members are proposing? Who is the proposer? Who is the seconder? So how many numbers of member should be there to fill up the quorum for the meeting. So we have to decide on that. There should be a leadership. If the meeting is to be organized, there should be a chairman. The chairman who announces, who formally inaugurates, who formally opens up the discussion. So, for all this activity, the chairman should be there. So, this chairman is very much required. He should have a leadership qualities, he should have motivating qualities, he should look at the brighter side of the story, he should discuss on very positively, and he should also understand who is opposing and who is suppose say compromise. Then there should be a proper plus. The leader who chooses such a plus where they can meet together. And the next one is timing. What should be the time and how time is convenient for all of them. So, it stands for achieving these things. So, all these are that we see are the ingredients of the communication, and this ingredients needs to be understood in the full detail. Now, let us go through the first type of group communication, and that is interviews. Interviews is one of the group communication. As we have seen, interviews, how interviews are to be discussed. See, interview, the general sense of the term, are what we come to know from the newspaper or from your friends. Our general knowledge will explain that interview is only for the job interviews, but it is not so. To bring the interviews in the broader perspective, we just need to go through the first definition. See, interview by its definition or the concept stands for the side between or view between. An interview is a conversation with a purpose. It aims at getting truthful responses from the candidate. Murphy and Peck. This definition is made by Murphy and Peck. The meaning of the interview is side between or view between. So, a meeting between two persons for the purpose of getting a view of each other and knowing each other. This brings us to the wider perspective of the interviews. So, of course, a journalist who is putting questions to the prominent personalities from the politics or from the government definitely may be called as interview. So, it doesn't fall under the purview of the job employment interview. There are certain purposes, and these purposes makes us to understand the types of interviews. What types of interviews that we see? First, we have the purposes, and as per the purpose, so the types of interviews. See, the employment selection means to recruit candidate for a job is the purpose, and such a type of interview is called as employment interviews. To assess the performance, evaluate the performance of the employer. It stands for evaluation, stands for assessment interviews. Then we have grievances. If the reprimand defaulting, such a reprimand is called as we have seen, is grievances. Promotion interviews, to promote employee to a higher post within the organization, to improve his so-called salary, position and powers, authority. Such interviews are conducted. We have promotion interviews. We have exit interviews. Those who are not good at their work, duties and responsibilities, they needs to be expelled from the organization. Such a exit interviews are called on, and he is told about his faults and ways to improve. Such exit interviews are also part of interview. We have stress interviews. Stress, to put the stress, eustress, good stress, bad stress. So it will improve his performance by the stress. How he responds to the stress is just, it's kind of evaluation, it's kind of a test. So this is stress interview. Reprimand interview is a different one, is to rebuke and persuade. So will be the name of the author. Okay, so hope you liked this particular stanza.